Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Sasquatch Watch Radio with your host, Billy Willard, and the Blog Squatter. Strap in, hold on tight, get ready, because it is about to go down.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Sasquatch Watch Radio. Today's date is February 9th, 2009. It's going to be a great show tonight. I've got a really good friend of mine that's going to be on the show tonight, Mr. Eric Altman from Pennsylvania. Some people may know him as the director of the PBS, the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Society. And it's going to be great to have him on tonight. But before we get to Eric, I'd like to say hello to my, all right, I'm coming up with some good ones here, my wonderful, great, God, I got to come up with a good one, almighty blog watcher.
Okay, now you're laying it on a little thick. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. I understand you were sick for a few days.
Oh, yes, I was. I had a stomach flu.
That's just great.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I did lose 10 pounds, which is, it's not the best way to lose the weight, but I needed to lose it, so I'm not sorry for that.
Well, I'm sure your kids would be more than obliged to get you sick again, and then you could lose some more.
They will, yes. They definitely will.
Well, glad you're feeling better. Before we get started, do you have any news for us?
Well, since I just saw that Eric said that he was exhausted from having given an interview earlier today and having hiked for 5 miles, I think I could spare a few minutes for some news that I've collected over the last week or so.
Okay.
One that goes back a little bit. On the Blog Squatcher, I have a link to a hunting bulletin board where a bunch of hunters are swapping their Bigfoot stories, which I thought was pretty interesting. I mean, these are real hunters. I mean, they're not people who are. Let me put it another way. They're not Bigfoot believers first. They're hunters first, and they've seen things. And they usually, as you know, it's hard to go to a hunter's bulletin board and ask them, "Have you seen a Bigfoot?" Because they'll usually jump up and say, "No, we haven't. Get out of here. There's something wrong with you."
Right.
But when they start doing this stuff amongst themselves, it seems like they open up a little bit more. So there have been some really interesting, very interesting stories in this, and it continued on for quite a bit. It's finally been closed, I see now. I'm not sure why it was closed. A super moderator didn't like it. I don't know what it was that set him off on it, but it went to 13 pages before it was closed. So people had things to say. So that's interesting. If anybody,
you would have thought he'd want to leave that open. I mean, if it was active, getting people talking. Huh.
Yeah, I haven't looked in this thread in a while, so I don't know what it was that set him off. It could be a bunch of people started, sniping at each other. That happens a lot once you start talking about something controversial.
No.
So there's that. If people are, can you believe it? If people are interested in that, they can go to the Blog Squatcher. It's on the front page, about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stories down from Saturday, January 24th. It says Hunters Swap Bigfoot Stories. Another thing that's interesting that I've blogged about recently is there's a bird who's been filmed using bread to catch fish, which is a really sophisticated behavior that nobody thought, that I know of anyway, nobody thought birds could do something like that, or that animals could generally do something like that. But you can see the bird taking the piece of bread, pushing it out into the water and waiting, and when a little fish comes up to bite the bread, the bird catches the fish. So he's fishing.
I'll be darned.
That's pretty interesting, isn't it?
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
well,
and if you're interested in that one.
Isn't it there's also, I believe there's some type of a spider that kind of makes a net out of his web and catches like bugs flying out of the air with a net. It's like a web net.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. I couldn't tell you what it is, and I don't know what this bird is. I put up the video, but I didn't look into it to figure out what kind of bird that was. But
right, that's pretty cool.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Okay, so that bought Eric 5 minutes. Let's see what he can do with 85 minutes now.
All right. Well, then we'll go ahead and introduce our great guest, Mr. Eric Altman. How you doing tonight, Eric?
I'm good, Billy. How are you guys doing?
Doing just fine.
Excellent.
So what kind of radio interview did you just get done with?
Something out of Columbus, Ohio, a program called The Chosen.
Uh-huh.
It's an internet talk radio program, and it was a pretty interesting interview. I was very surprised at the host's knowledge on the subject. They asked me questions about Russian Bigfoot, and they were really up on their stuff. I was really, really surprised.
Sounds like they've done their homework.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. Is that also on the Blog Talk Radio Network?
No, it's on, what was it called? Something Tainment Radio. Dangertainment or something like that. I can't remember what it was, but no, it's its own independent internet podcast.
Gotcha. Well, that's great. Well, so I understand you've already been busy today. Before your radio interview, I understand that you had maybe a little bit of fun. If you wanted to elaborate on that.
Sure. The last probably close to a year and a half, I've been working with a witness up in Indiana County, southwestern Pennsylvania. You've actually met him, Billy.
Yeah.
And we'll just, for all intents and purposes, we'll call him Mr. G, because he doesn't like to have his name put out there. So Mr. G and his son had an experience in July of '07, and he and his son were walking from a bass pond, and while walking from the bass pond, they had something fall them out of the woods, throw rocks at them. They encountered a really horrid smell, but they never did see anything. Mr. G has lived in this area almost all his life. He's very familiar with the area. He's a hunter, fisherman, outdoorsman, and that really intrigued him. And over the course of the year and a half, he and including his family, have had numerous encounters with something. He even had a sighting, and he only saw it from the waist down. He saw something that was stalking him through the woods, and he saw it take off running through the brush and saw the actual torso waist down running off, saw the legs. And he's pretty convinced that there are more than one creature in this area. Mm-hmm. And the most recent activity that he had took place just after Thanksgiving of '08. And he and another researcher from Ohio were out there doing some night observations, and they captured some pretty interesting audio recordings, and had some growling and grunting at them, and had some branches broken. They discovered some tree bows and some tree twists and stackings, and had a pretty interesting night that night. Mm-hmm. And I've been up to his area multiple times, maybe a dozen times over the past year, when I can afford the time to get up there. And in the last 3 months, I've been up there about 4 or 5, maybe 6 times. About once every 2 weeks, I've been up there and checking out the area and getting out there to hike. And today, I was up there with him, and we were following up on something that we discovered about 2.5 weeks ago. And it had snowed up in that area, as many people know. In the Northeast here, it's been snowing most of January, and probably the first week or so of February. So that area is along the Chestnut Ridge. It's the very northern part of the Chestnut Ridge in southwestern Pennsylvania. So they get a more abundant snowfall than we get here where I'm at. So they had maybe 8 to 10 inches of snow on the ground. Right. And 2.5 weeks ago, while we were out there checking out the area where he had his encounter in November, we had found what looked to be, and I thought it was a set of boot prints walking through the snow. The tracks were side by side. There were drag marks between the tracks. There wasn't very much of a stride between the tracks, but it was odd how they came off the road, and we were out in the middle of the woods. There was really no tire tracks going in this place other than maybe a gas well truck that drove back to check the gas well. But the tracks went off the road into the woods and went back quite a ways. And as we were following them back, we were noticing the path of these tracks weren't going around trees or low-lying brush. It was going right through this stuff. It was pretty unusual to see these tracks just walking through branches. And we started finding tracks, stick stackings and branch breaks and tree twists. And as we hiked back about a mile in the woods, we found a second set of tracks that came off from the west heading east that met up with the first set of tracks we were following to the north. And then we found a third set of tracks that came and met up with the first set. So we had 3 sets of tracks, very similar in size and shape and gait, and they all headed off to the north, almost parallel to each other. I thought that was intriguing, but again, I wasn't getting too excited because they weren't abnormally large. They were only 14 inches, and as we all know, with the freeze and thaw, tracks can take on some pretty big sizes.
Right.
So with that, I thought it'd be, in my best interest to continue to monitor the area and see what we find. And I went up today with him, and we've had temperatures in the last couple of days in the 50s, and stuff is starting to melt. And at night it refreezes again. And today we found something pretty unusual, and I can't classify it as Bigfoot tracks because there was no definition to them, but we found tracks that measured almost 18 to 19 inches in length. They were pretty large. And what impressed me the most about these tracks is the stride between them. We only found 4 of them, and they came out of a clear cut into a gas well road. There were only 4 of them we found, but the stride was about 5.5 to 6 feet between each track.
Oh.
Now, it's intriguing because we did see a ton of deer tracks, and they were a lot smaller in size and a lot closer to each other, and we were leaving, of course, tracks in the ice and the snow and much smaller stride, but these were enormous. And the only thing that logically I could possibly think that left these prints was an animal that might have been leaping through the snow being so deep. From one impression to the next impression, maybe a bobcat or a small animal or something. But there was only 4 of them that we found. They came out of a clear cut, and they stopped. So it was pretty intriguing.
Now,
and,
was there snow and ice in the clear cut as well?
Yes.
Okay.
In the clear cut itself, we did find tracks, but they didn't have the stride to them that we found out in the opening, out in the open outside the clear cut. The tracks in the clear cut themselves were about the same size, but they were much closer together. And they were going around and in between small branches, low-lying vegetation and brush. So we did follow those back into the woods a ways, but it was interesting to say the least. And I think that it warrants further follow-up. I'm not saying it was Bigfoot that did it, but it was definitely interesting. And hiking around that area today really wore me out because, as we all know from hiking in ice and especially 10 inches of snow and ice, it's pretty hard. It's not easy to do.
Yeah, it just makes it that much harder. I remember when we was up in the Adirondacks on one of the Nezra expeditions, we had like 2 feet of snow, and just lifting your leg, and making the step into that kind of stuff and walking for a mile, man, it wears you out quick.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So.
But I did see some of the tree twists that he was talking about, and I didn't get any pictures today. I was too busy examining the tree twists for hair and any possible evidence. I did try to untwist the branch that I did find, and it would have to take something with some considerable strength to do what this thing did to this branch. And fortunately, you're coming up here in the next couple of weeks to join me, Billy. We're going to go out and take a look at this area, and I'm going to show you some of these tree twists. They're pretty impressive.
Okay, cool. Very good. Well, it's maybe kind of rude for me. We may have actually some people on this radio show who may not know much about you, Eric, which would be odd because I think your name is pretty well known out in the Bigfoot world. But for those who may be new in here and kind of visiting, just tell them a little bit about you and what you do, with your position at the PBS.
Well, as you guys had said earlier, I am the director of the PBS, the current director right now. I have been the director of the PBS since 2000. I've been actively field investigating now since 1997, and I don't know whether I should thank him or I should curse him, but it's in large part to Don Keating. in 97, 98, I got the chance to meet Don at one of his annual Bigfoot conferences over in Newcomerstown, Ohio. And at that time, I was just an enthusiast. You know, I was researching the subject through books and documentaries and newspaper articles and following other researchers' work and studies. And I really wasn't a field investigator. But when I got over to Ohio and attended the conference, I learned from that point that there were a lot of people in the area that were, I guess you call them independent researchers, that were going out there on their own and just going out and following up on reports and going out and hiking in the woods and looking for evidence. So I figured, you know, what the heck? You know, they kind of said, you can do it, Eric. Go out and give it a shot. Why not? There's really nobody in Pennsylvania doing it. So I came back to PA and decided I was going to get into active field research. And at that time, the BFRO was just an up-and-coming organization. I volunteered to be a member or a researcher for Pennsylvania, and they made me into what was called back then a point of contact for Pennsylvania.
Right.
And my mission was to put together a research team in Pennsylvania and, you know, like we do with the PBS, to build a mini organization inside the BFRO for Pennsylvania and investigate sightings. And that's what I started doing. I started putting together a team based on membership applications, volunteer applications, and got to know a lot of people in Pennsylvania through that. My stay with the BFRO was short-lived, and through the BFRO and through other people in Pennsylvania that were doing research, I got to meet Steve Anderson and Henry Benton, who had just formed the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Society and became a member with them. And about a year into it, Steve had resigned the directorship due to personal reasons and asked me to take over, and that's what I've been doing ever since.
All right, very good. Yeah, I guess my, correct me if my understanding's wrong, but I guess another person who was handling Bigfoot sightings in Pennsylvania was someone who really wasn't into it. He was more into UFOs, I guess, was Stan Gordon.
Yeah, Stan has done both Bigfoot and UFO sightings and unusual creature reports, and pretty much anything in the unusual and unknown category he's been following up on and investigating. Stan had several research groups over the years. He's been doing this for about 50 years now, and the last research group he had was disbanded in 1993. Now, Stan himself has been following up on reports as time permits and work permits, of course. He gets out there and goes when he can. But for the most part, he hasn't really done a lot of in-field investigating. He does from time to time. But when the PBS was founded, there really was no organization or group out there doing the work. That's why we kind of decided, let's put something together and see what we could accomplish.
Right. Now, let me, I know DB's got some questions from the chat room, but let me real quick get this number out. For anyone who may be listening live and may not be in the chat to see the number, if you want to call in and ask Eric any questions, the phone number tonight is 347-237-5070. Again, that's 347-237-5070. The lines are wide open. I do have someone on the line, but I believe I know who that is. But I'll check with him in a moment to see if he has any questions. But DB, I think I saw a couple questions roll through the chat room.
Yes, there are two pretty specific questions from Kite Squatch.
Okay.
And the first is, on the Sunday tour after the 2008 conference, have there been any new sightings at the site where the bike trail and the creek near the residential area?
No. Alan, I haven't heard anything from that area. I've been back up in that area several times since we were out on the tour in September, but I haven't run across anybody up in there. I haven't heard anything from that area. It's been pretty quiet. Matter of fact, the couple areas I took the folks on the tour after the conference, the 3 locations that we went to, I haven't heard anything from those areas. So I honestly couldn't tell you if anything's been going on. Now, what I do find interesting, and Alan was with us, and he can probably corroborate this, is while we were out on this tour, and we had about 15, maybe 20 people on the tour with us as I was taking them to different sighting locations and report locations. We had people coming out of the woodwork literally from a business. They came out and they told us that they possibly had a sighting in this area. We had people walking their dogs, stopping us, said, "What are you guys doing?" And we told them, and, "Oh, yeah, well, we've heard about Bigfoot sightings up in here." And then I guess the word spread because we had basically people coming up and asking us what's going on, has there been any sightings? So it was pretty interesting.
Right.
Okay, there was a second little question after the first one, and that is, and what was the business in the building in the open field next to that location?
The name escapes me off the top of my head. It's some kind of, I want to say, tool and die plant. I'm not exactly sure what they do there, but I know what you're talking about, and that's where the husband and wife who owned the business came out to where we were at along the creek and asked us what we were doing back there. And when we told them, that's when the woman opened up and told us that she had at one time observed a figure at the tree line behind the field of her business watching her and another coworker. It was kind of squatted down near some trees and watching them, observing them. And when she went back inside to get a binoculars, she came back out and saw this thing walk off. I don't recall the name of the business out there, but it was an interesting place to say that. Nonetheless, it was a very interesting place.
Okay. Was that it there, DB?
That's all I've picked up so far.
All right. Let me we'll quickly bring. I know who this is. I believe this is Jason. Is that you?
Yeah, it's me.
Did you have a question for Eric, or are you just listening in?
I'm just listening in.
All right. Well, Eric, this is Jason. This is Jason, my brother.
Hi, Jason. How you doing?
I'm pretty good. You?
I'm doing good, thanks.
All right. I'll put you back on hold so you can hear the show.
All right.
And let me pull up, I believe, Mr. Henry May.
Yep.
How you doing, Henry?
I'm doing just fine. I'm looking forward to May. I'm getting antsy, getting ready for it to get here.
I'm sure you are. We all are.
Yeah, not only for the Ohio conference, but also for the Yakima Bigfoot Roundup.
That's right. It's going to be a busy month. That's for sure.
Yeah, I know, Billy. You and Eric are heading up there.
Yep, me and Eric and well, we're all going to Ohio and we're all going to Washington. So
Yep.
It's going to be busy.
Yep, sure is.
I know you got a question for Mr. Altman.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Eric about. I remember has he done a follow up on the what was it, the deer kill, the photos that you showed at the Ohio conference last year?
Right. They came out of. I'm having a brain fart tonight with all these different locations and names people have asked me. I apologize. That came out of Bradford County, up in northeastern Pennsylvania, up near the New York border. We've been in touch with the family. Nothing has happened since. The last that we've had investigators on the property was about a year ago. Joe Biello followed up with them, and nothing has happened since then. They occasionally hear wood knocking in the woods, or they hear an unusual scream or howl come out of the woods at night, but they haven't found anything. And the last that I knew of, I haven't spoken to them for a while, but the last that I was informed was the carcass was still in the tree, and we were working with Tim Cassidy to try to get the remains of that carcass to a forensics expert to take a look at the carcass to try to determine the cause of death. And he wasn't able to get anybody to do it pro bono for us. So.
Oh yeah. And that seems to be the problem, of course, with the funding and everything, obviously.
Yeah, it's quite expensive.
Yeah, I imagine so. So the carcass is still there. Nobody's moved it.
That's the last that I was told about a year ago when Joe checked into it. The carcass still remained in the tree. The bones and the hide of it, obviously there's no flesh left of it, but it's still in that tree.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yep.
I also wanted to ask, how many reports have you received on average each month since the Ohio conference?
2007 was very, very busy for us. 2008 was dead. We had gotten one report in late May, early June from Warren County where the Jacobs creature photos came out of. Stan Gordon got a report from the same county in, I believe, August, and we got a few reports sent into the website, the PA Bigfoot Society website, in the fall, but really nothing panned out. We got a report of some tracks found in Armstrong County around a lake. Unfortunately, I was never able to coordinate anything with the witness to get up there and take a look. By the time we got the photos, it was almost a month and a half, 2 months later, so it really served no purpose to go up and look around the lake if there wasn't going to be anything there worth looking at.
Yeah. I got you. Well, that's pretty much all I wanted to ask. Thanks very much.
Well, thanks for calling in, Henry.
Yeah, no problem. Y'all have a good evening. Good
Thanks,
show
Henry.
so far. Yep.
Right.
Later.
All right, folks, if anyone wants to call in and ask Eric any questions, the number's 347-237-5070. Again, that's 347-237-5070. DB, any more questions?
Well, we do have a couple more. Right quick, I'll say that Hucklebuck says he missed it. He wanted to know more about that body carcass in the trees. Where was that?
That took place in Bradford County, northeastern Pennsylvania. Probably as a crow flies, the biggest city is Towanda from there, and it's probably about maybe 10, 15 miles. From the New York border, I would say maybe 30 to 50 miles. It's not far from the New York border at all, but a very, very rugged, remote area up in that area.
Can I just ask, is it close to a road? Like, could a car have hit a deer and sent it up into the air?
No.
It's too far from a road for that.
Where this occurred at, and I'll give the story if I could real quick. It's a pretty intriguing story. On July 4th of 2006, family come home from an outing to celebrate the holiday, and as they were coming into the house, they were hearing screams coming from the very large wooded area behind the home. And this went on for a good 15 minutes. They would hear one animal scream and another one answer from a different location, and then a third one answer from yet another location. It went on for quite some time, and the family was kind of spooked about it. They went in the house. Next day, the kids went out into the woods behind the home, and if you look at the pictures that I have on the website, there's a huge field, maybe 200-300-yard field difference between the house and the woods, and it was a good mile into the woods where they found the carcass of the deer. So it was nowhere near a road or an access or even like a gas well or anything like that for a vehicle to hit it. I've actually had people speculate thinking that the animal was killed by a large cat.
Right. Like a cougar or something.
Right, and the family has seen cougars, mountain lions up in that area on several occasions. So it is possible a cougar did that, but the person who found the deer, the young family members who found the deer, didn't report any bite marks in the neck or anything that really appeared that a cat did that. The pictures that I have that I've never released to the public and only shown a few people, from the mid-torso of this deer back is completely gone. It's quite bloody. It's very graphic. It looks like something just grabbed the hold of the hind legs of this deer and just ripped everything right off.
Huh.
Tummy.
Yeah, and that's why I didn't show it at the conference, because I knew there would be some younger people there. But some of those photos, you look at it, you go, wow, what could have done that to that poor deer?
Yeah, I've seen the pictures. I mean, it's pretty graphic. I've never seen a hunter hang a deer up like that, so I'm not 100% sure that, I know hunters will hang a deer sometimes to gut the deer and all that, but that doesn't look like what was going on there.
Yeah, the actual right front leg of the deer was wedged in the Y of the tree, and the back end from the mid-torso back was almost completely gone.
Right. Yeah, it was definitely a little strange. Real quick, let me get this caller, DB. I know you got more questions in there.
Yep.
Let me get this caller from the 804 area code. You're on there with Sasquatch Watch Radio.
Hey, everybody. This is Elsewise. I just wanted to call in tonight. As most of y'all know, or some of y'all know, I'm pretty much new to the whole Squatch arena, and I'm trying to get to know some of the personalities and some of the stories. And I'm always interested in finding out what started somebody on this particular journey. You know, how did you get going? I wanted to ask Eric that. What prompted you to? And you may have said something tonight about it, but I just wanted to know what prompted you to get started in Squatch, and what keeps you going 11 years later. I think you said you started field research in maybe in 97.
Yeah, I've been doing it about 11, 12 years now. I got into this when I was about 10 years old, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners who tuned in tonight remember growing up in the late 70s and 80s, they used to run those old cheesy black and white or B-rated horror movies on Sunday afternoons. They used to call it the drive-in theater movie show or whatever. The local cable had a name for it. But I used to watch them, and I was always in love or fascinated with those monster movies, the B-rated monster movies. And I had saw a film called Legend of Boggy Creek in 1980, and was just captivated by the fact that there possibly could be a large unknown primate running around Fouke, Arkansas, terrorizing the people that lived there. And not too long after that, I saw the movie Creature from Black Lake, and I was hooked. And from there, everything I could find, John Green's book, Sasquatch Apes Among Us, anything I could find on the subject, I grabbed a hold of it and devoured, and literally read cover to cover, magazine articles, newspaper articles, anything I could get my hands on.
Right. And so what has been your most compelling piece of evidence that you've found? If suppose that 10 was absolute certainty, almost a visual sighting of or a body, and 0 was absolute denial, where do you think you would fit on that spectrum?
That's a great question, and I really haven't thought of that the last couple of years because I've been growing more and more skeptical of a lot of the things that are going on in the field.
Right.
About 5 years ago, I would have been about a 7 or an 8. I think right now I'm probably about a 6. I still think there's something out there. I still think there are viable witnesses having encounters and sightings and experiencing things, that defy logical explanation. I haven't had an encounter to convince myself 100%. I've had a couple recent ones in October and November that really intrigued me and shook me up pretty good, but I can't honestly say those were Bigfoot because I didn't see the animal during daylight. I saw something at night, and it really intrigued me, but just the last couple of years I've become more and more skeptical. And I actually had a friend of mine actually laugh at me, and he said, "Man, you're even being skeptical towards what you experienced." And I think, I think you honestly have to, because if you're going to believe everything that's out there and everything everybody tells you, why are you in this? I'm trying to find a logical answer to things and trying to remain as objective as possible.
Sure. Okay, well, that's all the questions I had. I sure appreciate I'm sorry, I can't talk. I sure appreciate y'all's time. Y'all have a good one.
Well, you know what? We see you in the chats all the time. I want to thank you for calling in. It's good to hear your voice.
You're welcome, sir. All right, see ya.
Bye-bye. All right. Let me grab this other caller's on the line. DB, I'm not trying to put you off. I just want to get these callers in here.
It's okay.
Let's see. Caller from the 918 area code. You're on the air of Sasquatch Watch Radio.
Hello, Billy?
Yes.
This is Ed Smith in Oklahoma.
Hey, Ed. How you doing, man?
Doing good.
That's good.
I wanted to ask Eric what his opinions were on these target animals utilizing infrasound.
That's a really great question, Ed. And finally, it's good to say hello to you, my friend. It's been a long time. We've chatted before in the chat rooms and whatnot. I really don't know what to take on the infrasound. I haven't done a lot of study on it. I'm trying to do some study on the pheromones, thanks to Tim Cassidy. I think it's very possible that these animals do have a very massive chest cavity that is capable of producing these ultrasounds. It remains to be seen. I think more research needs to be done on it. I think it's a very viable topic, and there are animals that are known to use that infrasound as either a defense mechanism or an intimidation factor, or using it when they're out looking for prey. I think it's very, very viable and very possible that these creatures are using infrasound to intimidate or to frighten off persons or maybe intimidate the deer that they're hunting or small game that they're hunting.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that the regional differences or variances in these creatures' behavior from sections of the country, Pacific Northwest, southern states, up to your northeastern states, do you think these variances in behavior predicate subspecies, or do you think it's just a difference in the actual behavior of the target animal?
Another great question. I'm really not certain.
Okay.
I'm really not certain. I know here in the Northeast, there are reports of these creatures being a little more aggressive, a little more gutsy, if you will. You know, they're seen around homes a lot more often than they are in the PNW. In the South, I know from speaking with a lot of researchers and reading a lot on it that they tend to be more aggressive in the South. It very well could be a subspecies, and based on the environment and the climate that they live in and the viability of food sources, they may have to be more aggressive for those purposes, but it remains to be seen.
Okay. Can I ask one more question?
Sure, go ahead, Ed.
Okay. Eric, what do you believe the relevance of Bigfoot organizations will be after one day we do have a discovery?
Another great question, and that's something I've debated with people for quite some time. My personal thinking is, and you can look at it any way, really. My personal thinking is once that we have a viable find, the group that is responsible for that viable find, the scientific community or the government may come in and take all their findings, all their data, all their information, and we as common researchers or amateur researchers are going to be left high and dry. But then again, the other side of the argument is we're the ones out there doing the field research. We're the ones out there collecting the data, learning about this animal, sharing the experiences with one another, learning from the witnesses. So they may depend on us to provide them information that they need to conduct their scientific investigations on this animal. It's a hard call. I hope they do keep us in mind and they do work with us, because there's a lot of good folks who put a lot of time, a lot of hours, a lot of money into this search. And to some, it's not just a hobby. This is serious business. And I hope that we aren't left behind when the scientific community comes in finally and starts to document and do scientific research that's needed.
Okay. I did come up with one more question I'd like to ask if I could. You
certainly can, Ed.
Okay. Eric, based on certain environmental factors and the pollution of the environment, especially in the Northeast, do you believe that mercury levels in these animals, or any animal really, but our target animals, do you believe that the mercury levels are higher in these animals than, say, the surrounding environment, to include other smaller animals or creatures? And do you think this causes problems in this species more so, just like it would here with humans?
I can't really answer that, Ed. I apologize. I haven't done any studies on mercury in the environment or in any kind of fashion at all. I've really never thought about mercury or even pollutants affecting these animals. Where I do my research at, in several of the areas, we don't have a real problem with pollutants. We used to in the 1970s. Pittsburgh and the southwestern Pennsylvania area was just a toxic waste ground from all the steel and the coal and all the pollutants in the air, but it's been cleaned up significantly. And I really haven't noticed any mercury levels. I mean, I never really looked into it, to be honest with you.
Okay. All right, Eric. And Billy, thanks for taking my calls and my questions.
Thanks for calling in, Ed.
All right. Thanks a lot. Talk to you later.
All right. DB, I'll let you get to those questions because I know they've been stacking up on you.
Yeah, I've got a few now. Let's see, going back to Steve, 1974, he wanted to know, have there been any more sightings in the southern Clearfield County area bordering Indiana County?
Yes, and that's a prime target where we are conducting our current research at.
Okay. He also asked about the Sandy Ridge area in the last 6 months to a year.
I haven't heard anything come out of the Sandy Ridge area. We haven't gotten anything really definitive out of 2008 other than the couple reports out of Warren and Hazleton in central Pennsylvania. Nothing real definitive. The area where I'm working at right now has been ongoing for the past 2 or 3 years, and that's where we're conducting it. Not Sandy Ridge, but the southern Clearfield, northern Indiana County area.
Okay. I've got another one from John Cartwright who wants to know who the best Bigfoot hunter in the world is.
That would be Don Keating.
Take that, JC. Put that in your pipe and smoke it.
John and I have had that conversation too. We joke around. Don is the best, and he's the second best. JC's the second best.
I wouldn't even put him anywhere near the top. I don't know why you did.
I humor him.
We've got more. We've got more where that came from. Just get rid of John's because we don't need that one anymore. Okay, now Elusive One says, what do you use for wood knocking, and do you recommend a baseball bat?
That's a great question. Actually, I tried something new today. I tried an axe handle. Picked up an axe handle for about $7 at Walmart, and it works wonders. A good friend of mine from Ohio, Phil Bracco, uses a baseball bat, a wooden baseball bat, and he gets some good results from it. I've tried, and Billy can testify to this, I've tried using just small branches, and after a while they break and they splinter and they fly off into different pieces. So I would recommend an axe handle or a wooden baseball bat would be fine.
Or if you can get yourself a good piece of cherry, like somebody's cutting down a cherry tree, and you just grab a length of that. I mean, that'll harden up, and it stays hard for a long time. I've had mine for a couple of years. It works pretty well. So that's 2 recommendations. Axe handle you can actually get right now. Here's another question is, what do you think it will take to prove their existence? Will DNA do it, or do you need a body?
I think you need a body. DNA is great, but we don't really have anything to match it with. I think you need a body.
Mm-hmm. I accidentally just clipped off the name of the person who had asked that question, so I apologize. I clipped it off when I was casting out JC's question. So you can blame JC, really. Here's one from Osmond. Yes, he's not talking anymore. I think he's crying in his beer. Osmond wants to know how high in the tree was the carcass. We're going to go back to the deer carcass.
The deer carcass, maybe 1.5 feet, 2 feet off the ground. It actually, the majority of the body was touching the ground, so it wasn't high up in the tree at all, which from my research on cats, and I'm not an expert on big cats, but I know they take their prey a little higher up into the trees, but this one was on the ground. Its right front leg was in the Y of the tree, and the Y was probably about 1.5 feet. If anybody's interested in seeing photos of the deer, they can go to our website, pabigfootsociety.com, and click on photos, and you can take a look at some of the photos there.
Cool.
Great. We still have more. Get ready for this one, though, because Andy Drew says you've got good hair. And he wants to know if you have any filmmaking aspirations.
I've been asked by several people to be in documentaries. They've never really panned out. Rumor had it that Monster Quest was supposed to get in touch with me to do an episode here in Pennsylvania. That never panned out. Our group, we finally have a Bigfoot costume I picked up at Halloween, so we may try to put together a documentary based on some stuff here in Pennsylvania. Not committing to anything, but we've thrown that idea around. Now, I haven't really appeared in any documentaries, at least not that I'm aware of. And as far as the hair goes, I don't have any hair. It's about gone.
Well, we know what he was referring to then, don't we? I hope you know who he is so you can kick his butt later.
I did have a nice 70s porn mustache a few months ago, though.
Great. Well, hey, we need a picture of that for later on to just share with everyone. Kite Squatch wanted to know what you thought about using an aluminum bat. Just popped into Kite Squatch's head. What about using an aluminum bat for wood knocking?
I've never tried it. I imagine it would work. I don't know what kind of resonance sound you would get from it. Maybe a twanging type of sound. I don't know. I've never tried it. Give it a shot. What could it hurt?
It might be so interesting that you would get a response because it was different.
Yeah, and just a real quick example, when we were in Ohio back in November, we were in an area where we heard something beating on a metal cable wire, like a twang sound to it at 3 o'clock in the morning. It was pretty interesting.
Yeah, that would, any kind of an interesting sound. DB's got a good point, if it's something strange that they haven't heard before, who knows, what kind of response you may get back on that. Could be interesting. Never thought of that, really.
Yeah.
I mean, we all think of a wooden bat because we figure, wood on wood is a natural sound that they, But, using an aluminum bat on wood, I don't know. Who knows?
Well, interesting enough, not to get on a sidetrack or anything to get away from the questions, but when we heard the recording that Don Keating played for us when we were in Ohio, Tim Cassidy made the point, it doesn't sound like wood knocking, it sounds like jaw popping. And maybe these creatures are doing that. Maybe they're able to do a jaw-popping sound or knock their teeth together and make that sound that sounds like wood on wood to us.
I don't know. Guess anything is possible. Got anything else there, DB?
Yeah, Watch One is going back to the deer. He wants to know, are there eagles where the deer was found?
There are eagles in Pennsylvania. I don't know of any in that particular area. There is a viable breeding population of eagles here in PA, but I can't honestly say if there are eagles in that particular area or not. I've never seen anything up in there.
Right. Are there known to be cougars in that area?
Yes. The family that found the deer carcass has claimed they've seen cougars, mountain lions. At one point, they claimed they had seen a cougar with a radio collar on.
Well, that means that the wildlife people know all about the cougar.
All right.
Given what I've heard, if it had a hoof wedged up in there, that would explain why half of it's still there. If it had been a cougar, the cougar just couldn't get the rest of it down. He ripped off what he could, but he couldn't get the rest of it down. That would support the cougar idea.
If you check out the pictures, one picture that's pretty interesting is where the hoof is in the Y of the tree, there's also blood below that hoof, almost as if it was wedged or it got trapped and it was trying to get out of that tree.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty interesting.
Well, that taps me out on questions, gentlemen. You're free to go.
I'm going to go ahead and give out that call-in number again. It's 347-237-5070. Again, it's 347-237-5070. And, darn, as soon as, let's see. I'll tell you what we'll do. Let's go to a commercial break, and then when we come back, see if we got some callers on the line. But if not, we'll get to the rest of the questions I have. And we will be back in just a few minutes.
Sasquatch Watch Radio. Stay tuned.
Are you tired of the same old boring radio? Looking for something with a bit of an edge? Then sit down, strap in, and hold on tight, for you're about to be taken beyond the edge.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Let's get ready to rumble! It's down and dirty paranormal talk radio that takes you beyond the edge. Join us here on Blog Talk Radio Friday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern for Beyond the Edge Radio, as we interview the everyday investigator to the seasoned researcher. From ghosts and hauntings, demonology, UFO and alien life forms, cryptozoology, psychic phenomenon, and other mysteries and unusual anomalies. Paranormal talk radio that goes beyond the edge, and it's right here every Friday night at 9 as we take you from the boring everyday normal into the world of the paranormal. Think you're brave enough? Then lock your doors, open your minds, and join us if you dare. Beyond the Edge Radio, Friday nights 9 p.m. Eastern, only on Blog Talk Radio. Beyond the Edge Radio is an anomalous entertainment production. Check us out at beyondtheedgeradio.com.
Welcome back, everyone. And before we get on here, I'm going to give out the call-in number again. The call-in number being 347-237-5070. Again, it's 347-237-5070. DB, some questions came across the chat.
We did have a couple come up. Elusive One wanted to know what type of plaster do you suggest for casting, and why would you suggest the one you suggest?
Well, as I answered him in the chat room, I recommend dental stone. It picks up some good detail, and it's very, very sturdy. It's a lot better than plaster of Paris or most things on the market, but it's expensive, and it's very difficult to find. I believe Mike Killen at one time posted something about where to find, maybe it was Ostrocal, I'm not sure, but he posted some type of plaster or sediment to make castings with, and it was pretty decent priced, but I can't recall the name of the website. Personally, when I go out, I use plaster of Paris. I use whatever I can find that's cheap. I really haven't made many plaster casts. Here in Pennsylvania, what people fail to realize is when we find something worth casting, thank you, Mike, it's UltraCal 30. When we find something worth casting, it usually doesn't have a lot of definition to it. Very rarely we find anything with definitive toes or possible dermal ridges in it. The ground is just too hard and too dry to really cast anything. I haven't had any luck casting anything.
Cool. Got anything else, DB? Is that it?
Yes, I do. I'm
okay.
Just finishing typing up something here.
Oh, okay.
And I am done. Okay, Ozman wanted to know, have you ever tried a silicone-based casting material?
No, I actually haven't. I'd be very interested and open to trying anything new. Any suggestions that anybody has, please shoot them my way and bring me up to speed on them. I'm always willing to try new stuff out and see how it works.
Cool. Irish guy has asked, what type of blast call do you use, if any?
I've recently purchased a digital game predator call made by Western Rivers, and I've downloaded some things off of the net thanks to Stan Courtney. He has some pretty interesting sounds, and I went to him to see what he would recommend using. And of course, I've used some of the more common ones from the Sierra Sounds, and actually our group, as funny as it may seem, we've actually not recorded, but downloaded, I should say, sounds of women in ecstasy, moaning and screaming, babies crying, cooing, different types of animal sounds. We tried anything and everything possible to see if we could attract a response. The only thing we've ever attracted as far as response to the sounds that we've broadcasted is a pack of wild dogs going crazy and barking and howling at us, but that's about it.
All right. And then some guy named DB wants to know, do you have any speculation why we don't find more prints? We never find good prints on the East Coast. Why is that?
I think it's the rainfall. I really do. I think we don't get the rainfall that the Pacific Northwest has to allow the soil to be conducive for good tracks. Mostly what we find are impressions, and we have to speculate on those impressions. Are they Bigfoot? After 12 years, I can honestly say I've seen a couple tracks in snow that have convinced me that they very well could be Bigfoot tracks, but most of the stuff I find in even mud or dry soil are impressions, and they really don't have much definition to them.
Right. I got a couple more here all of a sudden. Elusive One asks, what do you think about the different kinds of calls they make? Do you think they mean different things?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch it. Somebody was calling in on my phone.
Okay. Elusive One asks, what do you think about the different kind of calls that Bigfoot make, and do the calls they make mean different things?
I'm not sure if they have a language of their own. A lot of people speculate that. And any animal does. Any animal has a language of their own where a bark coming from a dog may mean different things. It might mean a greeting, or might be an aggressive bark. I think that these animals, certainly, they do have different types of sounds they emit, but I couldn't tell you what the purpose of them was for, the whoops or the growls or the gurgles or the garbled speech that have been reported, or even the howls and the moans. I don't know what they mean, but it's very possible they do have their own language and they can communicate between each other.
Mm-hmm. And Elusive One then asked a second question. I think you had caught up to the part where we were talking about you using that predator call thing. He wanted to know what kind of distress calls you would use if you thought you were going to attract them.
Well, a couple that I've tried are jackrabbit or cottontail in distress, doe and fawn in distress. And the reason I use those is because of the reports that we hear about them having an interest in small animals, such as raccoons, possums, rabbits, deer. There's been numerous reports of them carrying off deer or tracking deer or hunting deer. So I try to use those. Those are primary calls that are used for predators, such as coyotes and whatnot. So those are just a couple I would try to use. All right.
Okay. Well, I am tapped out for now.
All right. Call-in number again is 347-237-5070. I tell you, going back to the print thing, around here we have so much leaf cover and stuff like that. I mean, it's just not many areas where one of these things are going to step to where you're going to get an impression. I mean, the undergrowth and the leaves and stuff in the forest out here, I mean, at least in this area, it's just not conducive to prints. The only reason we found the one print is because of a power line cut where some of the grass was actually missing, and there was like this, we had just had a little bit of rain, and something had took 3 steps outside the woods into a power line cut. And that's the only reason we got a print, but it's again, not perfect because, I kind of agree with Eric. A lot of times we have below average rainfall, and things are just dry around here. I mean, when we do have rain, it's not enough to really affect anything. So,
and plus people have to realize that the Northeast, and I'm not sure from where you're at, Billy, but the Northeast has a lot of coal and a lot of shale, a lot of hard ground, and it doesn't make for good soil. It really doesn't. We come across a lot of that, a lot of hard, rocky type terrain.
We have a lot of shale here. It's a lot of shale around here. I mean, the only soil that we have around here, unfortunately, is, the shale. We have, it'd be really nice if they would just walk through Fairfax. They would walk through Fairfax. We got this nice, what's called Glen Elg soil, which is, very similar to kind of both a powdery and a clay-like consistency. So it would, it would probably pick up really nice dermal ridges and everything else. But they're not walking around Fairfax, Virginia. So
we need more beaches in Pennsylvania.
Well, I tried to send them out JC's way down in Virginia Beach, but Sasquatches don't seem to like that area, so
they just avoid him.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. So, all right. Any more questions, DB, before I go on?
I got one from Elusive One again, asking, what would you suggest for casting in snow?
I've never tried to cast tracks in snow, but from dealing with other researchers, I've heard over the years, and you guys can confirm this, or other folks can confirm this, to use a silicone type spray or a hairspray in the track to create like a film or something, a buffer between the casting material, because when casts set, they heat up. And if they're going to heat up in the cast that you're trying to make or trying to copy, it's going to melt that cast. So you want to try to put some kind of buffer in between the track itself and the casting material. And I've heard folks say they use hairspray. Try that.
They do make, just for everyone's information, they do make a product called Snowprint Wax. It's made by a company called Lightning Powder Company, Incorporated, out of Jacksonville, Florida. It is a product made specifically for doing investigations by the police, CIA, and people like that. So it's called Snowprint Wax. I've got a can of it right here. I've got a 6.5 ounce can of it that was given to me. But I'm sure this stuff can be ordered. And as a matter of fact, if anyone wants it, I'm looking at the website right now of how to reorder this stuff. Again, it's called Lightning Powder Company. The phone number is 800-852-0300, and the website that's on this can is www.redwop.com. Now, I've never looked at this website or tried to call those numbers, but that's what's on the can I just now looked at.
Billy, could you give out the name of that company again? Lightning?
Yeah, it's called Lightning Powder Company, Incorporated. Powder being P-O-W-D-E-R. I'll type it in the chat room. I'll type all that in the chat room while DB's asking more questions that I'm sure he's got.
Well, no, I don't. Or at least I don't have any questions from chat folk. But I always have questions. One of the things I think that the listeners enjoy hearing is like, what are some of your most remarkable cases, or your weirdest cases, or something that really made you, think for a long time? Can you give us any of that?
We had a case in 1994. Actually, a couple cases in 94 really come to mind. 2004. I'm going way back there. 2004. Yeah, I'm jumping into my wormhole right now. 2004, we had a couple that lived in central Pennsylvania in Clearfield County, and it was a mother and a son who lived in a farmhouse, and it was just outside of the town of DuBois, Pennsylvania. And they had experienced something going on around their house for a good few months. They would hear it in the woods at night crashing through the brush. They would hear it occasionally scream. Several of their cats disappeared. Unfortunately, we found the remains of one of them, the bones and the tail, about 300 or 400 yards from the house. But they had these ongoing encounters, but they never did see what was coming around the house. Every time this thing would get right to the wood line, and they were positive it was going to come out into the open into their yard, the sun would flip on the floodlights in the yard, and this thing would stop and take off back through the woods and disappear. And this went on for, maybe the whole summer of 2004. And they contacted us in August, and we went up there and investigated. And every time we were up there, nothing happened, of course. We put up game cameras, no photos were taken. Nothing ever happened, but as soon as we left, we'd get a call saying there's stuff going on again. And it was almost as if the creatures were intelligent enough to know that we were there. We even tried staying as far away from the house as possible where we could still see it, on the hill from where we were camping, but nothing. And it was really peculiar because these folks seemed really honest and really sincere. And what convinced me they had something going on was the behavior of the two dogs they had. They had a Doberman Pinscher and they had a Beagle, and they kept the Beagle tied outside. And as soon as it started getting dark outside, that poor Beagle was having anxiety attacks. It was whimpering and crying, pacing, hiding in its doghouse. It was like it was scared to death to see the sun go down. The Doberman Pinscher tried to climb through the back door, screen door, with the screen actually being about 4.5 foot from the ground. It literally got up on its back paws and ripped a hole in the screen door, climbed through, pulled itself up and climbed through the screen door to get in the house. It was so afraid to be left outside at night. And I had no doubt these folks were being honest and sincere about what they were experiencing, but every time we were there, no matter how soon after they experienced that we were there, nothing happened. So that was pretty intriguing to me, and I have no explanation why that happened. And we had a case very similar to that took place in a suburb just outside of Pittsburgh, a place called Tarentum, where the gentleman there and his mother and his mother's boyfriend corroborated a lot of what he was telling us. They would hear these creatures come around the house at night screaming, beating on the side of the house, making noise. He claimed that he had several encounters in the woods where these creatures screamed at him on several occasions at night. And we'd go up there, and we spent almost 2 months every weekend, 2 or 3 nights a week up on his property, sitting out till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning with teams, 4 or 5 people, 10 people, spread out all over the property. Never had anything happen to us up there that really said there was Bigfoot there. Nothing. We found no tracks, nothing. Mike Frizzell was kind enough to loan us, we didn't have one at the time, but an audio recorder, a sound-activated audio recorder that he had put together in a weatherproof housing containment unit. We left that on the property for about a week and a half. While it was there, nothing happened. There was no creatures coming to the house, no creatures screaming. We captured roosters crowing, dogs barking, lawnmowers, rain, thunderstorms, everything that you commonly hear in the woods, but we never heard anything about creatures. He never had any experiences. The family didn't have any experience. We never heard anything on the recordings to really make us think that there was creatures on the property. We took it down. The activity started again. We put up game cameras. We got pictures of deer, the dogs, people hiking around the property. No Bigfoot. We took them down. The Bigfoot came back to the house. So again, something else that's intriguing me, and Bill Dranginis touched on this at my conference, and he's been working on this for quite some time. He believes that these electronic devices emit sounds that the creatures can hear, and once this stuff goes up, the activity stops. When it comes down, it starts up again. But those are a couple intriguing cases that I really have no explanation why the activity stopped when we started investigating.
Well, it's a well-known truism that as soon as the investigator appears, the Sasquatch leave.
Yeah.
So that's just the curse of deciding you'll be an investigator.
Right.
I do got a couple more questions, but Billy, have you got a caller or anything?
Nope, go right ahead.
Okay, Elusive One asks, what can you tell us about your evidence collecting techniques?
We try to collect everything as professional and to the best of our ability where we're not contaminating the evidence. I learned over the years not to use plastic baggies, for example, if we came across hair samples, because the acid in the plastic may deteriorate the hair. I was instructed to use paper envelopes without the acid on the glue. We try to treat every case as scientific as possible. If we find evidence, footprints, whatever, we're not trained scientists. And I'm not going to stand here and tell you that I have a scientific background. I don't. My background's in communication. But I've tried to learn from other investigators over the year how to best collect evidence, to keep it properly stored, and try not to contaminate it, try not to ruin it, try to get over to the proper people to take a look at. But as I alluded to earlier, it takes cash to do that, to have them test hair samples for DNA and blood samples if you're lucky enough to find them. And that's, unfortunately, it's something that we just don't have, is the funding to do that.
Yeah, I know a lot of people have, a lot of the people that I've talked to is concerned have mentioned that probably one of the biggest downfalls of plastic Ziplocs, for example, would be having a temperature change which would create a moisture inside the baggie. Mm-hmm. And moisture, as we know, can break down and ruin a lot of evidence, particularly anything that you can get DNA out of, from my understanding, can be really damaged by moisture. So that's what I've heard on the Ziploc bags. But again, you can have the same problem even in a paper bag or an envelope, if you're not careful. So you have to watch your temperature, kind of make sure everything's kept at a room temperature when it comes to anything that you think you can get DNA out of.
And one thing to keep in mind with evidence, time is of the essence. It's really crucial, and I stress this to people who had a sighting that wait 2 or 3 years to report it. I understand they're really concerned about conditions of confidentiality. They're concerned about being ridiculed. I completely understand and respect that, but unless we get a report today that happened today, chances of finding evidence, good evidence that you can collect and have tested, the longer you wait, the less chance you're going to have. Right. It's a ticking clock, and unless we can get there on site right away and collect that evidence right then and there, a report 2 or 3 weeks old is nothing to me any more than just a report. It's data to collect to show that these animals were in the area, but unless there's something that happened right then and there, the chances of finding something are slim to none.
Yeah. Okay, DB, I can see you're going to be busy.
Yeah, the questions are coming in. Scott A. wanted to know if there was anything new with the lady having Bigfoot on her porch.
No, Scott. I had the phone conversation with her back in May. It was probably one of the more interesting reports that I've actually talked to a woman about. Do I have a quick minute to recap the report for everybody?
Sure. You go
Please
right
do.
ahead.
Okay. In May, I received information from some folks off of Blog Talk Radio who have a show informing me that a woman in Warren County in the northwestern part of the state, the same area where the Jacobs creature photos came from, had a very unusual encounter. She was at home. She's divorced, and as she was home that night, she heard a loud thud on the back deck of her house. And this is a 2-story house. The deck is on the 2nd story. And her dog went nuts and went charging for the glass patio door, and she grabbed a spotlight that she had in the house and shined it through the back door and saw a creature duck down behind the patio furniture. And she shined it there for a few seconds. It stood up again, and it leapt, literally with one hand on the railing of the deck, leapt from left to right over the patio down onto a fence below, a metal fence, and actually damaged the fence where it bent it down because of the weight coming down on it, and it took off and disappeared. And what really made this report intriguing was the woman She told me, and I still laugh about this, she told me, she said, I've never seen a penis on an animal or a person that big in my life.
Oh, my.
She said,
very interesting.
She said it was down below its knee.
Good God.
Oh, good Lord.
And I jokingly said to her, I said, why didn't you invite him in for dinner?
Oh, man.
And she did laugh at that. She said, I was just stunned. She said, I was just stunned at looking at this enormous penis on this creature. And that's the first time in 11 years I've ever had anybody ever tell me that. And I was actually kind of stunned that she told me that. But she seemed pretty sincere, and she didn't really have a reason to make the story up from what I could gather talking to her. I did have a team ready to go the next day to get up to her place and get out there and look at the fence. She claimed it climbed up her lattice because her lattice up to the second story was damaged. She claimed there was damage to that, damage to her fence. She claimed that she had some mulberry bushes in her yard, holly bushes, that ate all the berries off the bushes in one night. And we had a team ready to go. I told her we can be up there in a couple hours. Just give us directions, and we'll come up. We'll keep you completely confidential. And she shunned us. She said, nope, I don't want anybody coming up here. I don't want anybody to make a big fuss about this or, come up here and get my neighbors all riled up, which I thought was kind of odd because she told her neighbor who lived 2 miles down the road from her. But she didn't want anybody on her property. Didn't want anybody coming up there and making a big stink about it. And it was kind of disappointing because we had our opportunity right there to find very good evidence. The damaged lattice, the damaged fence. We really could have found something worthwhile, but she pulled the plug on it pretty quick.
Wow. That was an interesting one.
Yeah. Yep. So I guess Bigfoot, if it ever wants to, it has a good possibility of being an actor in some adult films.
I'm glad we were able to air that here on the show. We'll be sure to get some contract offers out into the woods.
Yeah.
They'll report to you.
Right.
I'm sure they will.
All right, before you get to those other questions, the call-in number is 347-237-5070. Again, it's 347-237-5070. Go ahead, DB.
Tennessee Cherokee asks, what kind of night vision equipment do you use?
I have something from Bushnell. I have a first-gen monocular from Bushnell. I have first-gen monocular from Night Owl. And I just picked up a first-gen, top-of-the-line pair of binocs. And I actually have it out on loan. And the name of the company escapes me at the moment. But it's a real nice pair of binocs that I just picked up. We're looking at improving to maybe second or third gen. I got to tell you, Billy, I'm jealous of Tom's night ops that he has. Wow, that third gen night ops. Oh my gosh, it's just it's impressive.
Yeah, that thing is just. Every time I look at that thing, I'm just amazed by it. I mean, it's It's like just looking in the daylight. I mean, it really is. It's a great tool, but those are pricey. I mean, you gotta have some cash to get one of those.
Yeah. Eventually, I'd like to get the FLIR, but I don't think that's going to happen for any time soon.
Yeah, that's well, they've got the handheld ones now, which are a little less pricey. You can get one of them for about $4,500 to $5,000. It's about a little over half less than a full size FLIR unit, but maybe one of these days.
Well, if I hit the lottery, we're all set.
Okay, good. DB, go on with your questions.
Well, I've only got one question left, and this is from Amgems XY, and Amgems wants to know, was it circumcised?
I would imagine no. I wasn't there. I couldn't tell you.
Okay, glad we cleared that up.
But I am jealous.
Maybe that's what they use those rocks for, DB.
This is what happens when you bring me on your show. It goes right to hell.
No.
And then we go to 90 minutes. Usually we'd be off the air now, and we would be making these jokes, and it would be all right. But we're still on the air, though.
Well, since we got, one thing I've been paying attention to, folks, and we did get a lot of emails and messages of a lot of folks saying, go to 90 minutes, go to 90 minutes. Some people saying, go to 2 hours, go to 2 hours. So here's what I'm going to ask. I have noticed, and I have been keeping an eye, that we at one time had 69 users in the chat room. We currently have 53 users in the chat room. So here's my question. Do you all think the show should continue at 90 minutes, or should we go back to 60 minutes? I'd like to see some emails. If you want to see it, if you want to send messages on the blog talk, that's fine. Or you can send them to my email at bwillard@sasquatchwatch.net. Again, that's
and let's not forget. Yeah, go ahead. Yep. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, let's not forget that when we were doing the 60-minute show, we would go over when we had guests who had a lot more to say. And, I think we've been to 90 minutes before, so it's not as if we would cut guests off.
Right.
You just would have to get it from the archive.
Okay. Well, everybody in the chat so far is saying 90 minutes is great, and then, of course, you got, Bruce in there trying to start trouble with 2 hours. But, that's typical for Bruce. He's probably eating a 32-ounce steak drenched with A1 steak sauce right now as he's saying that. But we won't go there. But, just let us know, folks. We like Ron. Okay, Ron, we'll go to 15 minutes. Well, what does that tell us? Are we that boring, Ron? Now you got people wanting us to ban you, Ron.
Our day in the sun is over.
See, we get ourselves into trouble. What are we doing? Anyway, no, seriously, folks, any of your comments are always welcomed. I share all the comments that we get in with DB, because we want to know, how are we doing? Is there something you would like to hear? Is there a certain guest you would like for us to try to get? Let us know. Just send us an email, send us a message on Blog Talk, and we'll do what we can do to, satisfy everyone. So again, that email address is bwillard@sasquatchwatch.net, or you can just simply send us a message here on Blog Talk. Everyone knows how to do that. So just wanted to let everyone know. Now, here comes the calls. So let's see.
Hey, before you take a call, I would just like to say that everybody should be satisfied now after the story from the woman on the porch. Put it home, pump. All right, go to the calls.
Let's hope so. All right, let's take this first caller. Caller from the 918 area code. You're on the air of Sasquatch Watch Radio.
Yeah, Billy, this is Ed Smith again. I just wanted to make a suggestion, maybe that your infrasound show and your other shows like that might be best if you go to a 2-hour format just for those shows, because those get pretty in depth and lengthy, and some good things do spiral out of those. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, well, I appreciate it.
All righty, bye.
Thanks, bye. All right, DB, you heard that?
Yeah.
Let's see.
Shoot, you and I will both be asleep by the end of the second hour. The guests would have to run the show.
Oh boy. I pulled in a caller and then I lost him. Darn it. I had just pulled him in and then I lost him. So whoever the other caller was, and I didn't even see the area code because it disappeared before I could even say the area code. If someone just got disconnected, feel more than free to call back because we still got 6 minutes left of the show. Before we get too far along, though, and go into archives or anything crazy like that, I'll just let everyone know that next week we're going to have a gentleman by the name of Tyler. Tyler is with the SBRU, which stands for Sasquatch Bigfoot Research Unit. That's based out of Indiana. So we're going to have him on the show next week, and he's going to tell us what all he's got going on in Indiana. My understanding is he's been busy doing some research of his own along with his group, and we'll get some information about what in the world he's got going on up in Indiana. So stay tuned to that next Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. Do you have any... John Cartwright, that wasn't your phone number. Don't try to tell me I hung up on you. DB, do you got any more questions?
There was a question back here from Elusive One. He wants to know if Eric will say where in the country right now he would call a hot spot and why.
Based on reports that I've been hearing come in, and based on a lot of these shows that I've tried to catch and hearing people talk about their activity and research, there's a couple places in the country right now that I feel are hot spots, if you want to call them that. Ohio, eastern Ohio, southwestern Pennsylvania. Virginia right now is a hot spot with the activity that Billy's investigating and has going on down there. Oklahoma and Texas, always a hot spot. And some of the southern states, like Arkansas, Louisiana, Alabama, seem to have a lot of activity going on. Haven't heard very much from the Pacific Northwest in the last couple of years, maybe a report here or there, but nothing's really been coming much out of that area. So those are my three areas I would have to say seem to be the most active right now that I'm aware of.
All right. Well, DB, we're getting down to the last couple of minutes. Do you have any closing remarks that you would like to make or questions to Eric?
Well, I didn't prepare any remarks. Let me think now for a moment. You know, I just can't get the image of this gigantic penis out of my mind, so I'm having a hard time here. But, you know, to speak seriously about that for a moment, I do know that I read somewhere, I can't remember where it was, that you rarely get any description of a penis from a Bigfoot sighting. You might get, you know, well, it had breasts, so I think it was a girl or a lady Bigfoot. But you rarely get someone saying, I know it was a male because I saw the penis. Usually they'll say, well, I had big shoulders and a big chest, so I think it was male. And one thing that I had read, and like I said, I can't remember where I read it, was that proportionally Bigfoot were thought to have smaller sexual organs than it would have if it was a human that size. So it's interesting to me that this lady saw one as large as she said that it was.
All right. I'm putting my email address in the chat for anyone who wants to send us those suggestions or comments about the show. You know, tell us what you like, tell us what you don't like, tell us any suggested guests, anybody you'd like to see. And we would appreciate it. And Eric, do you have any closing comments or remarks tonight before we start ending the show?
No, I just thanks guys for having me on. I appreciate it. I've been kind of out of the loop of things for a little while, and just trying to do some field research. And I appreciate you guys having me on to talk to you guys on the show, and wish you continued success with the great show that you have, and keep doing what you're doing.
All right. Well, I appreciate it, Eric, and I'll see you probably here in a couple weeks.
Yeah, looking forward to it, Billy. Hopefully, DB, you can come along too.
We'll have to look into that. We shall see.
All right. All right, Stonewall, I'll post that in there one more time. My email, Addie. Sasquatch.net. There you go. bwillard at sasquatchwatch.net. Appreciate it, guys. DB, thank you for being the great co-host that you are, because I can keep up with all those questions and trying to think at the same time.
It is my pleasure.
So I want to thank you for that. And everyone tune in next week. We'll have Tyler with Sasquatch Bigfoot Research Unit out of Indiana on the show. And everyone have a great week. Good night.
a legend silently stalks the forest around the world, leaving giant man-like footprints in its wake. Skeptics scoff while the true believers search for the answers, and those who have seen it will never forget. Monday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern, Blog Talk Radio. Billy Willard and the Blog Squatcher present Sasquatch Watch Radio. Your hosts Billy Willard and Deanie Donlin bring you 60 minutes of the latest news and information, newly discovered evidence, and interviews with those searching for the truth and those who have seen it. Do you believe? Want to know the truth? It's out there waiting. Monday nights, 9 p.m., Blog Talk Radio. Sasquatch Watch Radio. Sit down, hold on tight, get ready, because it is about to go down. blogtalkradio.com/Sasquatch Watch Radio.
Airline credit card rewards have helped grow America's travel and tourism industry. In 2022, 15 million Americans traveled domestically using reward miles, generating $23.4 billion for local economies, supporting more than 183,000 jobs. But now Congress is considering legislation that could eliminate credit card rewards and decimate the U.S. travel and tourism industry. Tell Congress to support travel and tourism jobs and oppose the Durbin-Marshall credit card routing legislation. Visit handsoffmyrewards.com/travel to take action. Paid for by the Electronic Payments Coalition.